All right, everybody. This is Kit with Hard Lens Media, and I just wanted to say right now we are in the beginning process of watching this event take place. It's going to get started pretty soon, so I'm really excited for what we're going to get. Yeah. So okay, it's not showing up on your end just yet. Okay. So for those who don't know, I got Daniel right here, right next to me. Hey, Dan, say hello. There you go. So also due dissidences here. We have saw the other crew members of RBN here as well. I'll just push it over here. So there you go. We got all those beautiful people showing up. So in regards towards covering the DNC convention, we will continue doing so. I'm not going to lie, folks, the security around the United Center in McCormick Place has been intensified. Sorry, what else? Too loud? Yeah, so it has been intensifying, but from what I, again, can learn from yesterday, there's a lot of upset groups and people who are not impressed with Kamala Harris. And the fact that half of the United Center was empty says all I need to know about what the DNC is offering voters, which is an absolute nothing burger. So, there you go. What's up? Oh, there you go. There you go. All right, so shout out to all you beautiful people. Hey, yeah, let's see. Now I can definitely reach it. There you go. All right.
Hey guys.
Here's Daniel. I dragged him out.
Adding stuff behind the scenes is pretty useful.
Yes, of course. So Daniel's here. There's Due Dissidents right there. There's a lot of other activists and organizers and groups here as well. So very excited about what's going to happen here. I know Jill Stein set to speak. We just did an interview with Kshama Sawant, so that's really exciting. Yeah, she's still over there being interviewed by another person. So, a very nice event, but I think it's important that we get the word out for third parties and independents, and really about getting our voices heard because it's long overdue. So, thank you, Big Basil. Good to see you. We got Javier Rios here. Thank you so much. We got B. We got Snippy McSendit, Popeye the Sailor.
Snipey McSendit.
Snipey. Oh, I thought it said Snippy. Snipey. All right. And Popeye the Sailor and Terry Connolly. Good to see all of you. Let's see. It'll be illegal to be pantless in a diner. Well, of course, or dinner. Hiya, Kit. Thank you so much. Beastmaster XX. Hey, all. Good to see you. Good to see all of you. Please be sure to hit the like button and share. Let's see. Big Basil. Kit becomes an in real life streamer. Don't put that evil on me. Please don't put that evil on me. I don't want to be one of those people like Sneeko. Oh, sorry. I don't want to be like one of those people like Sneeko or what was the name? Johnny Somali, that douchebag.
Oh, yeah.
That Johnny Somali dude. Anyways, I don't want to make it about that douchebag. But anyways, good to have all of you here. The event looks like it's about to get started pretty soon. We're still waiting for some more people to show up. I think Jill Stein set to show up. Daniel, what do you want to add in here?
Not a whole lot. We got here early. Our signature getting here earlier than we should, but we got everything set up. We're excited for people in the room. We got an interview out of the way, and we're ready to film. And we want to start early so you guys can get in. And it looks like we're just waiting on Jill Stein at this point.
Yeah, and so what we're going to be doing here, hi Kit's grandson Daniel, there you go. I can assure you I have no descent. I have family members, but I have no one of my bloodline out there, so there you go.
That'd be weird.
Yes, it would be. It would be very weird indeed. However, Jill Stein is arriving, so we'll be flipping around pretty soon. But one thing I do want to let everyone know is please hit the like button, share our content, and yes, we will be doing an HD version of this event that we'll probably share maybe over the weekend or something like that.
It's up to you.
Yeah, right. It'll be up to me. We'll run it by because obviously the YouTube algorithm, worship the almighty algorithm, never disrupt it. So.
You'll probably end up using this as reference when you go live.
Yeah.
You can get Patreon exclusive for the whole thing since it's available already for live.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's exclusive.
Yeah, there you go. So HD, if you want to see it in HD.
If you want to see this all over again with better video, I'm going to shoot that for you guys.
There you go.
Patreon.
So that's why you should be a Patreon supporter, or else. All right, so I think they're still talking and setting up, so we can still talk. I'm seeing Dr. Nick. There you go. Good to see you. The audio is pretty decent considering it's a busy place. Well, they're going to have speakers on, so the audio quality will be good. I don't think there's anything to worry about for audio. Snippy McSended, are you in a Waffle House? No, we're actually in a church.
I mean,
And we haven't decombusted,
it
so.
just depends on who you ask.
So yeah, pretty much, you know, if you don't see me burst into flames, that means the Almighty still likes me. All right, but everyone, once again, we are very grateful for the continuous support that we've been getting from a lot of people online, and seriously, thank you for everybody for your support, especially when Hardlands Media earlier this year, when you're going through a lot of stuff. So just thank you, and
It's good to be back.
yes, it is good to be back. It's good to be doing field work. So we got more stuff in the works, but the only way you're going to find out is if you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow us on YouTube, follow us on Rumble, follow us on Rockfin, follow us on Odyssey, and follow us on Kick. Follow us on all the social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as well. So I think it's only fair now to, I guess, switch things around and get things started, right?
Yep,
So there you go.
right.
All right, let's do that. There you go.
The one with the mask? Oh, yeah.
I could. Yeah, but I They keep typing, we're reading it.
Yeah, we're still reading it, folks.
No problem.
Thanks. Yep. What's up, brother? Hey. So, there you go.
Thank you, Benny.
Thank you, everyone, for your kind words. We do appreciate it. And for those who don't know who's doing the spinning of the camera, that's Daniel. Very professional there.
Well, it's not recording yet.
I know.
So,
I know.
I
It's
do
not.
what I want.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, everyone can see that.
I need to get up and move. I'll go ahead.
You're good. I'm just being bored.
Yeah. I could switch it around maybe just a little bit. Talk more to the audience. I don't think it's going to start just yet. All right. Oh, too
By the
close.
way, they can hear us whispering, just so you know.
They can hear us whispering?
Oh yeah, of course. Hey guys.
Hey guys. All right, so folks, still doing the waiting game. Looking forward to seeing a little bit more happening here, but we got a lot of people within the press here, smaller independent media outlets here too. So always happy to see more voices come out there. So that's what we're trying to do. I want to see the camera spin footage. Popeye, you'll be able to get what you want.
You know what? Just for you, I'll record for a second.
Just for the people. There you go.
Okay, that'll have to be enough.
That's gonna be a patron exclusive. That's gonna be a patron exclusive. No one else is gonna get it. We're not gonna post it on YouTube. It'll only be like, how long was that? 10 seconds?
Like 3 seconds.
3 seconds. 3 seconds of awesome
Maybe
video
at
footage.
least 2 spins for you.
It's gonna be a YouTube short. That's what we're gonna do. All right. Let's go ahead.
It's going to be a YouTube reel short.
There you go.
You want to hear the pencil? You can say anything and they'll pick it up. See what I mean?
Oh, I heard it.
Who are you with?
Our Lens Media.
What is? Okay.
Our Lens Media. That's who we're with. Who are you with?
I'm with Pacifica Network.
Okay, so which part of the country?
San Francisco.
Ah, come a long way. What do you think of Chicago?
It's a great city.
Wow, as it should be.
It's a lot better than San Francisco, it seems.
Well,
San Francisco's in a depression.
I have heard and I've seen and I've talked to people. Yes. Sorry. about
30% vacancy and a lot of homeless people. And gentrification has pushed out the working class out of San Francisco.
that. Sorry
So
about
it's in bad shape.
Sorry.
It's capitalism.
I'm sorry about that. I really am. Well, that's
It's not your
happens.
fault. It's not your fault. You don't have nothing to do with it.
Well, I know that. But, it hurts my heart. I've been to San Francisco before.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city.
I was there way back, 96,
Mhm.
95. I was a kid still, but, it's a beautiful city. Still can be.
Mm-hmm.
And Chicago's got the same problems too. Let's see.
Get a comfortable position. I'm gonna keep talking until
Yeah.
nothing else.
Yeah, true. Still playing the waiting game. The waiting game.
We have to entertain you people.
Yes, we have to do entertain the people. So we did run into a lot of great people who we saw at yesterday's event, a lot of supporters of Hard Lens Media, a lot of great supporters who follow the show, and people we've interviewed too as well. So
Be back out there.
yeah, it does feel good to be back out in the field. See, this is what happens when you have dedication. So for those who don't know, one person said they haven't seen Daniel. They've seen more of Daniel than they have in the whole
There's a
year.
reason for that.
Yes, there is, which will be explained in due time. But nonetheless, we are happy to be here. We're happy to collaborate with our colleagues of RBN. RBN's been doing fantastic work, and I know that our friend from Due Dissidence, we got Russell down there. There you go, Russell. Well, that's not Daniel. Russell, right there. So there we go. We got Russell. We got all these people here. And let's see who else we got here. Just want to see all these beautiful people. Let's see.
It was cool.
What's up?
That they did over there that recognized us at the start. It's good to people remember us coming out.
Yeah, that was nice. That was really. Actually, we ran into somebody who we interviewed way back in 2019, and they were like, "Hey, where were you guys at? Where have you been at? Where have you been at?" And it's heartening. It brings a tear to my eye. I cry for joy. There you go. Cry for joy. So it's always good to be remembered, at least in one point or another. So there you go. Grape and Time, good to see you. Laura, good to see you as well. Everyone, hit the like button if you can, and talk about an
If you can, you know you can. If you want to support independent media, just a small thing.
Brandon, dude, I saw you post on Twitter saying that you were at the Jimmy Dore show. We were there in the front row, man. Yeah, Brandon, we've interviewed him twice. He ran for alderman and won. Yeah, so there you go. So, yeah, man, we were there. Great event, too. Well, looks like I got to shut up.
So thank you so much, everyone, both our audience here in person and also on live stream for being here at Worker Strike Back. DNC protest, rally, and public meeting. If you're not familiar with Workers Strike Back, we're a nationwide grassroots organization of working people, young people, and retirees who want to build movements against the bosses in our workplaces, in the streets, and in the political arena. At our first national Zoom conference last month, Workers Strike Back voted to endorse anti-war candidate Jill Stein in the 2024 presidential election. Because neither Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump have any interest in ending the genocidal war in Gaza or representing the interests of working class Americans. Harris claims to have sympathy for the plight of Palestinians and claims to be working hard towards a ceasefire. But what does that mean when at the same time she acts in lockstep with Biden to send an additional $23 billion in weapons aid to Israel? At the same time that horrifying reports are coming out about the bombing of not just one, but dozens of school buildings in Gaza by the Israeli military. $23 billion worth of additional weapons when 1 in 4 people in Gaza have already been killed. And almost the entire remaining population, not just displaced, but constantly on the run from new attacks and without the basic needs of subsistence, like food, clean water, shelter, or medical care. Harris, like Biden, and the entire Democratic Party are not just complicit. They are actively arming this genocide. It could not have happened without the weapons and the money that they have sent, and have pledged to continue sending for at least the next 3 years. This unfolding atrocity will end up being the defining event of an entire global generation. The Israeli state seems determined to provoke a wider regional war in the Middle East. And all the rhetoric from Democrats and Republicans about defending Israel no matter what only fuels that possibility. And this is all happening in the context of a new Cold War between the US and China that has dramatically driven up global military spending to the highest rate in decades, and has erupted into an inter-imperialist proxy war in Ukraine, which has been raging for 2.5 years already with no end in sight. All of this points towards the growing danger, not only of a regional war in the Middle East, but even a new world war. A strong majority of Americans are outraged by what is happening right now in Gaza, and they want an immediate ceasefire and an end to US military aid to Israel. This is the truth, although you wouldn't know it based on what's happening inside the DNC. It's not enough to just oppose this war. We need a strategy. We need to turn that sentiment into pressure that can be exerted on the political establishment, because right now they are clearly not feeling it. To the extent that the energy of the anti-war movement is directed at trying to persuade Harris to do the right thing, instead of building a strong anti-war alternative that can pose a real threat to the two warmongering parties, it's undermining its own power. Every vote for Jill Stein ups the pressure on the US political establishment to end the war. And every vote for Harris or Trump is a vote for genocide. On that note, I am honored to introduce Nick Cruse. Nick is the empowering working class and oppressed communities through education, organizing, and direct action.
If genocide is not a deal breaker for you, there's something wrong with you. Any party that doesn't draw a red line at genocide is a party that does not deserve to exist. We have Holocaust Harris. Kamala Harris, they didn't remove Joe Biden as the lead nominee for president because he facilitated a genocide. They removed him because he had a bad debate. My name is Nick Cruse, the Revolutionary Blackout. My goal is to create a coalition of workers, anti-imperialists, to destroy the two-party duopoly. Call it two-party duopoly is kind of misleading. It's a uniparty of war and genocide. We must challenge the Democratic Party. They are, like my late great mentor Glenn Ford said, the most effective evil. And there are progressives and liberals that will say nonsense to you because their job is to confuse the workers. They will say some nonsense to you, and when you can believe it, they will tell you that you got to vote for Kamala because somehow Donald Trump is worse. Let's analyze the record of genocide Joe Biden. If you're one of the people who believe that Donald Trump will be worse than Joe Biden, you are engaging in genocide denial. You have to tell yourself that Donald Trump is worse because you have to reconcile with the fact that you voted and enabled a gross evil on humanity. Do you guys know who Lily Greenberg Call is? She was the first Jewish appointee in the Biden administration who resigned because she explained that there was a culture of racism in the Biden administration against the Palestinians. You had record amounts of federal employees and Biden appointees that resigned for the same reason. You want to know who didn't resign? Kamala Harris. She didn't resign because she had moral quandaries with the racism of the Palestinian people. To explain why saying that Trump is worse than Biden is genocide now, let me explain to you guys the actions that the Biden administration has taken. You had a giant debate in Israel right now. There was almost a civil war because there was debating whether the IDF has the right to rape Palestinian prisoners to death. And spoiler alert, the pro-rape crowd won. There was a mob of Israelis that stormed where the soldiers who committed mass rape and sodomized a man to death, and they demanded him to be released, and the government said no problem. The position of the Biden administration, when approached with this information, was we will allow Israel to investigate themselves. How would Donald Trump handle that? The same way. You had Joe Biden, who is giving Israel diplomatic immunity during this war. Do you guys know who the legend Aaron Bushnell is? Aaron Bushnell is a martyr who did not want to be complicit with genocide, so he self-immolated. Because the Biden administration gave the orders of the Air Force to help Israel with targeting in their genocide. Did the media tell you that? No. Aaron Bushnell's death is directly on the hands of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Hope you guys understand that. Genocide Joe Biden and Holocaust Harris enables terrorism in the West Bank. You had an Israeli terrorist unit, they call them military, a terrorist unit that engaged and they recently murdered an elderly Palestinian in their own home. In the light of this news, because it was bad publicity, you had the Biden administration that said we may put sanctions on the military. And man, the media liked that one. The liberal media ran with that for weeks. And what we told you guys in RBN is when I saw the word May, I immediately became skeptical. So it was announced last week that Biden will not sanction the IDF unit that committing terrorism in the West Bank. Not only that, they're going to continue the weapons that go to them. So explain to me how Donald Trump would be worse knowing these facts. We have to be clear to the working class, there are two wings of the imperial machine, and we must form a coalition to destroy them. You have Bernie Sanders and AOC. Did you guys see AOC last night? So I guess the game plan is to lie. I guess no one knows what the word ceasefire means anymore. Joe Biden said there was going to be a ceasefire the second Monday of February. What month are we in? Kamala Harris called for a temporary ceasefire so the IDF can take a break and get some snacks in between killing Palestinians. And you got people that have the nerve to tell me that they're calling for a ceasefire. Words have meaning. Please learn them, please. Kamala Harris, if you go to her website, has no policy. Doesn't really matter if she did. I know when I looked at Biden's website, he had a public option on his website. So we got the public option? Last time I checked, Joe Biden was supposed to send me a $2,000 check in the mail. What happened? So, do not believe anyone who will tell you anything a politician will tell you and promise you. We are grown adults. Politicians are not going to do anything for the working class. Do not pay attention to the policy platform. Do you guys know what you should pay attention to? Who they were hiring. I warned people about Genocide Joe, and I warned the Bernie Sanders left not to fall in line behind Joe Biden because his advisor was Anthony Blinken. His foreign policy advisor was Anthony Blinken, and you guys are surprised he started a genocide? So you want to know who the economic advisor for Kamala Harris is? BlackRock! Kamala Harris hired the same BlackRock economic advisor that was just in the Joe Biden administration. They said, well, if you vote for a third party, you wasted your vote. You're giving your vote to BlackRock every election. And you winning something. Don't listen to the platform. Look at who they hire. You want to know who directly funds and benefits from the genocide in Gaza? BlackRock. You want to know who's licking their lips right now at Ukraine, waiting to rebuild it? BlackRock. So why would anyone think Kamala Harris for any of those things when she hired people from BlackRock? Bernie Sanders and AOC play a very particular role for the establishment. They're here to cultivate a dumb left, an anti-intellectual left, who is filled with people who are political nihilists, who are defeatists. So the reason why they are supporting genocide Joe Biden, the reason why they don't care that they're going to get a public option, because they're so defeated. They are so nihilistic about the future that they believe the only chance that we have to get crumbs is to vote for people who commit genocide. So what social democrats and justice democrats do, they engage in a devil's bargain with the ruling class. They want to sell out Palestinians and the global working class out of the devil's bargain that we will get crumbs from the establishment when they don't do anything from us. They know exactly what they're doing. What we need to do is reject the political nihilism for the people who tell you we have no choice but to vote for genocide. I have my brother Rome here with me. We have RBN chapters in 5 cities all over the nation, and we are only 3 years old. Rome goes around feeding people, giving free haircuts, and organizing the community with scraps. Do you understand what Rome and RBN would do with $400 million that was wasted on the Bernie campaign? I'm begging the left to get serious. I'm begging the left to get serious. It's almost a flaw of mine, where I have almost too much revolutionary optimism.
Okay.
They're not going to see me until I'm in the dirt. And what we need to do, you need to figure out what you can do for this movement. I'm playing this very weird position in my life where I'm an educator. When I'm speaking to you guys right now, I guess this is what I do for the movement. So let's say you got stage fright and you can't do this. Let's say you're not someone like Rome who can engage in mutual aid. Let's say you're not someone who like Simon Sav. Let's say you're not like that. You do what you can for the movement. If you're good at baking pies, guess what you need to do when we have a march? Let me bake pies. If you're good at sewing, I can't. Maybe you should make some shirts. What you need to do, even if you work 60 hours a week, let's say you're doing well in your life, but you still care about the struggle. You work 60 hours a week, you got 3 kids, you don't have time. You know what you do? You fund Rome. You fund the mutual aid fighters. There's no revolution without class labor. You need y'all. So that's what my call is. On RBN, we laugh, we cry, make fun of the ruling class, but my main goal is to get people activated. I talk to people who live in China and Russia. I talk to people in the UK, Brazil. Last week I had a Palestinian roundtable. And what people tell me, I always ask them the same question, what should people in America do to help you guys resist this empire? We need to look beyond borders and form an international coalition of anti-imperialism because the war has already started. Dr. Stein. How many presidential candidates was arrested in brutal fashion standing up against genocide? When I saw that, I was like, there it is. There it is. I am doing what I can for the movement. Joe Stein, in her professional capacity, is doing what she can do for this movement. But it's more than just being someone who wants to be a leader. She put her body on the line. That's why I'm supportive of your campaign. But let's not rely too much on Bill Stein. Everyone has a role in this movement. Let's get activated. We need a revolution. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Nick, for volunteering to go first. I think that was the energy we needed to bring to the room. when I first came up here. I was excited to start introducing our speakers. My name's Kayla Nicholson. I'm a member of Workers Strike Back and a co-host of the On Strike weekly broadcast along with Sawant. We're very honored to have with us here tonight Hassan Abdel Salam. He is the founder of Abandon Biden, which just yesterday had a press conference to relaunch as Abandon Harris. He's been a professor of strategy, movements, and human rights for 12 years. And in December 2022, Hassan Abdel Salam was detained and tortured for 23 days by Israeli forces. For 12 days, alongside his research assistant, he engaged in a hunger strike. As he said at the Abandon Harris press conference yesterday, which I was lucky to be able to attend personally, the Abandon Harris movement is not going to condone genocide.
أحد 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 أحد. In the scorching heat of Mecca, a lone voice, relentless, undeniable to the ear in a land filled with injustice. This single voice, drenched in the sands of the alleyways of Mecca, burning into his nerves, the pain unbearable, a slave, voiceless, who speaks the word, a word of truth, Bilal, a companion to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, who said the truth as he saw it, despite the torture, despite his servitude as a slave 14 centuries ago. A story told often to children, and a reason why we come here today, traveling across the country, my research assistant and I, we found ourselves on Pennsylvania pavement, trying to speak against this genocide. At the University of Pennsylvania, an encampment, erected tents, people of conscience, courageous, side by side sharing stories. And in that trip, I found myself by the President's house in Delaware. The bullhorn passed over to me, and I began to tell my story. That my name is Hassan Abdel Salam. I've been a professor of strategy and human rights. That I was conducting research in Jerusalem for an entire year with my assistant. And we spoke about ways with the youth activists at Al-Aqsa Masjid, the mosque, highly renowned, third holiest in Islam. And on its enclave, we would strategize about ways to peacefully protest against the occupation. At that point, a year before the attacks, the genocide began, the youth are struck with the challenge of how to speak in a world that denies them a voice. When no one knows about the brutality, how their very choices are determined by an occupation. Amran doesn't know whether to get married because he could be captured. Usayd's father said quite nonchalantly to me one time, is in prison, and he doesn't know whether tomorrow will bring a day where he might hear that his father was killed. And the sons and daughters, fearful, powerless at the thought of their mothers coming to their home beaten, by Israeli forces. The fear that they'll never be heard in a world in which all of this happens in hiding. A world in which the attackers were presented for 76 years as righteous light, and those bombed proclaimed terrorists. So we strategized and we wanted to replicate the events of Tahrir Square in Jerusalem, under its golden domes. And we worked and hoped, and we even put our message calling for the liberation of occupied Palestine on YouTube in Arabic. My research assistant was crawling to the front. And people often ask, how could you have done this? On the 1st of December, after a year, after we posted our YouTube video, after we organized and spoke to the youth, a chapter of my research, unimaginable, began. As I was approaching the Al-Aqsa Masjid, one of the Israeli forces at the gate, and there are Israeli forces at every gate of this mosque. And if you haven't seen any forces at the gate of the church, at this mosque, every gate. And I was approaching after 6 p.m. and this guard, excited, tripping over himself, approaching me before I reached that fence, scrolling down on his phone. There was a photo. My beard clearly identifiable. And then began the processing. Handcuffed on my hands, on my feet, the metallic coiling into my skin, my nerves burning, stripped, naked, forces all around me, paraded through the old city, thrown into a van, taken to the infamous Meskubeya prison, blindfolded, claustrophobic, as I humbly, walking, tiptoeing, not seeing what was before me, the forces pushing me impatiently to what became my dungeon cell. A home, confined spaces, poorly lit. My company, a toilet bowl, its stench evident. The clanking of the keys behind two metallic doors. Whenever I heard it, my heart rate, the anxiety. Another day, another hour of interrogation. Again, handcuffed, blindfolded, blindfold lifted. Why are you here? What does it mean that you're ending the occupation? Amran is behind those walls. Sheikh Sami is behind those walls, humiliating me that I caused their detention, their torture. Tortured for 23 days, 12 days of hunger strike, followed by deportation. One man said to me, an interrogator, that he cleans himself with bleach because he talks to scum like me, less than spit. The humiliation confronted by people oppressed worldwide. That fundamentally, even in the midst of torture, the humiliation, the mental slavery endured. As I began to learn my new status, voiceless. And people ask me, how could you have spoken out, doctor, professor? You're smarter than that. You should have known. Don't you teach this stuff? How do you strategize in the enclave of Al-Aqsa, for which there's a formation of men and women, soldiers that appear within the mosque and under their noses? You strategized? You put your message on YouTube? Are you kidding? They asked me, why did I speak? And the real question, dear brothers and sisters, is how can we not speak? At this time of genocide, at this time of genocide, there is nothing more commanding morally than the word. The word that takes you to prison is the word proving that it has effect. Its impact evidenced by those who arrest, detain, and try to lock goodness and justice. The workers, the environmentalists, the climate activists, who find themselves in pain and shackled because the message unbearable for its influence and its power. I happen to be the founder of the Abandon Biden movement, and the goal is simple: to never side with the criminals. To punish the president and the vice president, to send a signal to the political landscape that when you engage in genocide, you will be thoroughly punished definitively. That the goal is for all of us, people of conscience, to gently walk behind the curtain and go to the ballot box, to speak the truth of voice, simple speech, and vote the truth. To ensure that the despicable candidates that rule the two parties never get our vote, and ensure that they know that because of us, someone who sits atop a superpower, the pharaohs in the White House, were defeated. We call on all to reject the logic that there is such a thing as a lesser evil. That we participate and negotiate in a bargain that reduces us and for which is presented as convincing to enable us in false consciousness to walk and vote against those who then enslave and torture and detain us. When I returned to America, I encountered a second trauma, the trauma of loneliness, the discovery that the American government knew the moment I entered prison, and they did nothing. Analogic is the nothingness for which the silence that the Biden administration, alongside Harris, contributes to this genocide, enabling it in its billions of dollars, while speaking doublespeak, kindness, claiming that they are impacted by the visuals. If you're impacted by the pain and the torture, it's so simple. It's found and clear in scholarship that simply stating that this government in Israel must stop its attacks by the United States, a phone call away, and not a single cent, would end the impact of this autocracy, for which for many years no one knew was an oppressive center of power on this planet. And so we call for the same thing the prophet, peace be upon him, who said, we are all a single nation. When one part of us feels pain, the entirety feels pain. That we must, together, Muslim, Jews, Christians, Gen Z, African Americans, Latinos, make history. That we feel this pain so great that we do not fall for the logic of voting for a lesser evil. A lesser evil impossible, because genocide is not anything but one of the greatest evils accepted by human rights constituencies worldwide. There is no milder torture or gentler genocide. Incongruent. This is simply doublespeak. For us to support an oligarchy the two despicable candidates that now run, and for which they are claimed by the media as the only choices. Before you is one choice. Third-party candidates are a path for us to show that we have punished this genocide. And so we abandon knowing that we might sacrifice for 4 years, that we must act even if it means our third parties don't win. Because we cannot side with the unjust. We cannot side with falseness. If we do and we are then complicit with it, we never open up the doors to a day when the world has changed. Biden is guided by the light of Martin Luther King. Not only the Martin Luther King was on Selma on the bridge, who wrote that letter to Birmingham jail, but the Martin Luther King who spoke out against broad American international intervention, the Vietnam War. And Americans, civil rights don't only belong to us. They belong to all people. The last chapter. We can show we're a credible threat. Setting foot on the battlefield, David targeted Goliath, the bully, the invincible, the one that was claimed to be impenetrable. When he threw his rock, he fell, and the Canaanites fled. Let's make this political landscape flee by becoming a credible threat to non-violently depose the criminals, to speak justice and truth. When I was being sent back and again while they were playing mock justice with me before courts that impersonate justice, I encountered one of the youth we met in our work, in our strategizing behind bars, handcuffed, typical. He asked me, what would I do if I come back to America? I thought I'd stay forever. They basically consistently again and again told me that I would stay here forever, rotting in prison. But I immediately answered when he asked me, what would I do if I come back home? I said, I'd speak out. I'd speak out. And the most brilliant thing appeared. A huge smile on his face. What brought him pleasure was that you would be hearing his story right here and now. What brought him pleasure is that he knew, that he came to realize that there are people who never went to occupy Palestine, that never met him, who worry about him, who appear in this church, who come out from every walk of life in Chicago, thousands and thousands of miles away from Gaza and from Jerusalem, with a single concern of making a difference to impact his life. He's not asking for the bombs to end, or for the raining of munitions to terminate. He's not asking for the rhetoric and the propaganda to end. What brings a smile on his face is that you heard and you acted. That you want to do something for him. That you feel empathy. And so let's walk the streets and protest, to speak the truth, to bring a smile on the face of the oppressed, workers, environmentalists, those who are poor, all across the planet, those who suffer from torture and genocide. Every moment we fight for health care, for environmental rights. We create the insurance system to never allow torture, to never allow detention, to close the doors from political candidates who can truly govern in goodness. And for us, ultimately, to speak the truth as a covenant, a promise we hold. For you I ask and gift you with the image of Brother Faris behind those bars. Please make it so that he didn't just speak to me, that his smile you see right now in your mind as I speak. I invite you to my prison, a place of unbearable pain, but of a sorrow that brings attention to the truth that we should act upon. Look at that brilliant face despite the torture, a face with a smile to each of you. The thought of speaking out in the protest to vote the truth. Because together, a single body, together we cry, together we laugh, together we protest, and together we vote. A single word, a word that brings victory, a victory for ourselves and those oppressed worldwide, who want to smile a smile in the midst of the heat of their torture. A single word. Ahadun ahad. Ahadun ahad.
I want to really thank all of the left and community media who are here today. When I was at the press conference for the launch of Abandon Harris yesterday, which was an incredible, inspiring event, it was very notable, the absence of the corporate media. And also, for anyone who's been following Jill Stein's campaign, we can see how they use their coverage or lack of coverage to try to prevent us from building and organizing and building the momentum of these movements. So everyone, all the media who are here today to help grow the reach of this event and these movements, we really appreciate it. I got an update a couple minutes ago that there's now over 200 people here in person, and when I first got the message it said there's over 500 on the live stream, and then I got another message a couple minutes later that said actually now it's 800, and then I checked on my phone a minute later and it was 960. The other channels that are here streaming live, so we're reaching well over 1,000 people right now, which is fantastic. I will just ask if anyone is sitting, if you've got some extra room around you in your pew, and it would be possible to scooch towards the center a little bit, so any of the folks standing along the wall to sit down, that would be much appreciated. So next, I'm very excited to introduce Sabiha Qazi and Ibrahim. They are both physicians who are calling for socialized medicine in the United States. And they both traveled here from out of state to Chicago to be here to protest the genocide in Gaza. Please join me in welcoming them.
So my name is Sabiha. I live in Orlando. I'm actually active with RBN's Orlando chapter, and I'd like to start because I wanted to share a story about a patient that I took care of a few years ago. I think oftentimes when you are healthy or when you have money, you don't really fully see how dysfunctional our healthcare system is. So I wanted to share a story about a patient that I took care of. She was a young woman in her mid-30s. and she noticed a lump on her breast. She had insurance through the ACA, but because her insurance had a high deductible, she couldn't afford the doctor's appointments, the co-pays for the imaging that she needed, the biopsy, essentially the workup for this mass, this lump that she had in her breast. The lump predictably grew. It grew to the point where it actually grew out of her skin. She had a large fungating mass on her left breast, but still, she could not afford to see a doctor and to get that worked up. It wasn't until she got to a point where she wasn't able to breathe. She was so short of breath that she couldn't work, she couldn't take care of her kids. So she came into the ER, was admitted to the hospital, and that's when I met her. It turns out that she had a cancer, a breast cancer, which had spread to her lungs and was causing her lungs to fill up with fluid, with a cancerous fluid. So that's a stage 4 cancer. That's what we call a metastatic cancer that has spread. And at that point, her cancer is not curable. Had she had the resources to seek medical care when she first noticed that lump, that could have been caught at a stage where her cancer would have been potentially curable. But now, it was not curable. While she was in the hospital, I actually did meet her entire family. I met her kids, I met her siblings, I met her parents, her husband. She eventually died. And, you know, she was a wife, she was a mother, she was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a neighbor. She was a fellow human being. And now, she's part of a statistic, right? She is one of the 68,000 people who die in this country every year from a lack of health care. So why does this happen? We're the wealthiest country in the world. Why does this happen? And the bottom line is, fundamentally, the bottom line is that we are denied health care so that the CEOs of health insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, big hospital conglomerate companies, so their CEOs can buy a second vacation home in Italy. So we are denied health care so they can buy their third yacht. That's fundamentally the reason why we do not have health care in this country. That, to me, is what I would call deplorable. I think that is depraved, morally depraved, and unacceptable. And this happens with the support of both corrupted corporate capitalist parties. So they tell us that we can't afford universal health care coverage. I think back in 2020, Joe Biden had said that if Medicare for All came across his desk, he would veto it over the price tag. But yet, one thing that I'm sure we've all noticed is that ever since October, we have no problem sending billions and billions of dollars to Israel for a genocide. And also to Ukraine for a proxy war. This is unacceptable, and this has to change. And I feel that we, as the people of this land, we cannot support anyone who is seeking power, who is allowing this type of healthcare system to continue. To me, I support Medicare for all, but I support Medicare for all as a compromise. To me, the ideal system would be a well-funded, well-protected, socialized healthcare system. Again, 68,000 people a year longer. Like, people's lives depend on it. So that's,
well, I'm the other position that's up here. I guess the third position. Well, I just want to say I'm honored to be here. I really didn't expect to be on a panel, with Jill Stein and with everyone here. It's really an honor. But the reason that I came down to Chicago with my friend Savita, and fellow physician, is because we live in an emergency. We have an emergency. It's a time of emergency right now. I'm not only a physician, but I'm also Palestinian. I grew up in the United States. Like all of you here, you see the images, the genocide of people, of children. 2.5 million people trapped in a death camp, half of them are children. That's what we're opposing. It's a very simple request. It's amazing that is a demand that we have to request of our leaders, because that's how indecent they are. Those parties are run by genocidal racists who really don't value the life of people abroad and people here at home. I see this both here at home. I take care of patients at a safety net hospital and see the care and neglect that our society provides to people at home. And I see that translated overseas to my ancestors, to my relatives back in Palestine. The same government is responsible for both. I also see the attack of my colleagues and healthcare workers in Palestine that are systematically targeted and killed and murdered. I think that's something that hasn't been highlighted very much, but I think something that we all need to raise awareness for. I also want to say that, the genocide that is happening in Palestine is also similar to the genocide of people here in the United States who lack health care. At least 68,000 people die a year, and that's why we need a different path forward. The Democrats are not our salvation. I was one of the few people one of many people that fell for the Bernie Sanders campaign over the last few years. Our job now is to organize, because this is an emergency. We have a genocide that's ongoing that has to end now. We have to call for a ceasefire now. We have to have an arms embargo linked with that, and we have to end the occupation. Without that, in the same light, we have a medical emergency in this country. The ACA that was brought to us by the Obama administration is a corporate giveaway. It's not health care. We need a fully funded, fully socialized system that provides coverage for everybody, regardless of who they are and how much money they make. I'm tired of seeing patients who can't get the care that they need and deserve just because we live in a system that's more interested in lining the pockets of corporations and their executives than it is about taking care of them. And lastly, we live in a climate emergency. Capitalism run by this country and corporations that run this country are driving the planet to death. This is pivotal. It's important for us to intervene. None of the two parties are interested in doing anything of substance to help the planet. And that's the main reason why I'm supporting Dr. Stein. my perspective and end the genocide, end the occupation, arms embargo now. Thank you.
If anyone watching is subscribed to On Strike, you might recognize Sabiha and Ibrahim, who were interviewed in our most recent episode on the ground at the DNC protest on Sunday. We actually just met them 2 days ago. And as Ibrahim said, you know, I wasn't expecting to be here on the stage speaking to people. And I would guess that everyone on this stage started out that way. I don't think anyone doing this work set out to be a public figure, but at some point they had an opportunity to raise their voice, or someone asked them to get involved, and they felt compelled to do it. So I just really appreciate you guys being here. And if you're not subscribed to On Strike, please do that right now, and consider joining Workers Strike Back. I'm just so excited about how many people are here today, both in person and on the live stream, and there's a lot of work to do. The size of a lot of the rallies and marches were not as big as I was maybe naively expecting, but a lot of the figures I saw projected were bigger than it seems like what the turnout ended up being. I think there's a real effect of this switch from Biden to Harris, and people kind of feeling like maybe on the back foot, or oh, maybe there is a chance to push now more. I think that had an effect of lowering the turnout, which is disappointing, but we can't stop, right? That just means we have to get even more serious about strategy. We have to get even more serious about going out there, campaigning, talking to people, and winning every possible vote we can for Jill Stein, for an anti-war candidate in this election. Now I have the pleasure of introducing former Seattle City Council member and founding member of Workers Strike Back and Revolutionary Workers, Kshama Sawant. Kshama's Socialist City Council office led the fight that made Seattle the first major U.S. city with a $15 an hour minimum wage, and it's now nearly $20. She also led the successful struggle for a tax on Amazon and the top 5% wealthiest corporations in Seattle to fund affordable housing. She fought successfully to make Seattle the first major U.S. city after Dearborn to pass a ceasefire resolution after the war on Congress. Her tenure in City Hall shattered the conventional wisdom that the only way to accomplish progressive change is to work patiently within the system. To date, her decades-long example is the only one that shows how working-class representatives need to be disruptors of the political status quo, not cogs in the machine. Please welcome Kshama Sawant.
Sisters, brothers, and siblings, it's very important and inspiring that thousands of people have come to Chicago this week to protest the Democratic National Convention, despite all the obstacles in front of working people and the anti-war movement. That we are not silently standing by as the Democrats carry out this genocidal war and all their attacks on workers. The Democratic elite say that Harris is somehow not complicit in the war, that she was not responsible for the Biden-Harris administration's betrayal of working people, that Harris and Walz represent a progressive change of course. This is the great lie that they are selling. A few blocks from Chicago's Union Park, the Abandoned Biden movement relaunched itself as Abandoned Harris. Workers Strike Back and I were at the Abandoned Harris press conference on Monday, yesterday, where we saw Arab and Muslim American leaders reject the great lie, reject the idea that they, their communities, or other working people can support this warmongering candidate, Kamala Harris. Unfortunately, leadership that is willing to stand up to the Democrats is an exceedingly short supply right now. We have had an onslaught of misleadership led by the Democratic Party, but assisted by so-called left media figures and by labor movement leaders. This misleadership is having a disorienting impact on our movement. That is why we saw 5,000 people on the streets of Chicago yesterday and not 50,000 or 100,000 as was projected before the coronation of Harris. I'm not here just to give a rah-rah speech. I'm here to speak the truth. It was only a couple of months ago that the media, including the New York Times, were making comparisons to the protests at the DNC in 1968, which helped define a generation, when the Vietnam anti-war protest movement put its stamp on history in Chicago. Now, instead of feeling the pressure from our movement, corporate media and the Democrats are celebrating. The Christian Science Monitor ran a headline yesterday: "Forget 1968, the DNC is underway in Chicago with minimal disruption." Is this because Harris has taken a position on the genocidal war that is different from Biden's or Trump's? No. Of course not. Harris has repeatedly reaffirmed that she will continue to back the Israeli war machine to the hilt. She met with Netanyahu the day after he received 58 separate standing ovations from the U.S. Congress. Harris's campaign has directly confirmed that she does not support an arms embargo. Indeed, since Harris became the nominee, another $23 billion have been appropriated for the Israeli military. Entire bloodlines are being wiped out in Gaza. Countless people, including children and babies, are losing limbs. Disease is spreading. The United Nations said last month that Israel's intentional and targeted starvation campaign has led to the spread of famine throughout the Gaza Strip. Gaza has been reduced to rubble. None of this would have been possible without Biden and Harris, the two warmongers-in-chief of U.S. capitalism and imperialism. We can have no illusion that Trump or RFK Jr. would do anything different. Trump is a warmongering, anti-worker billionaire con man. But Trump left the White House as the most unpopular president in U.S. history. And yet, now there is a possibility he could return to power. And the only reason for that is because the Biden-Harris administration sold out the working class in every sense of the term. healthcare for all. She said she opposed fracking. These promises, like much of Gaza, lie in rubble. They sold out the railroad workers. They abandoned 15 and even a healthcare public option. Working people face a deep cost of living crisis. The price of bread has gone up by 147%. There is historic credit card, medical, and student debt. Working people are facing war and climate catastrophe. Working people, faced with all this, they look back at the last 4 years, its massive levels of inflation, the skyrocketing cost of fuel, housing, all of this, and also a majority of American people are calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, and they look at all of this, and for all of these reasons, millions of working people want, correctly so, want to vote against the status quo in some shape or form. But many of the labor leaders and the liberal and self-described left media are strongly encouraging people to think Harris is that change. But the cold, hard reality is that for the people of Gaza and for working people in the United States and around the world, Harris and Walz are just a change of deck chairs on the Titanic. And many working people do recognize this. Make no mistake, the Democratic Party is the best builder of Trumpism. It was the betrayals of Clinton that led to Bush and the Iraq War. It was the betrayals by Obama in bailing out Wall Street banks instead of workers. In escalating the war in Afghanistan and abandoning single-payer healthcare that led to the right-wing Tea Party and then eventually Donald Trump. Last night, at the Democratic National Convention, AOC sold and celebrated the great lie. She claimed that Harris was working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bring the hostages home. She called Trump a too-big union buster and claimed that Harris, again these are all quotes, Harris fights every single day to let working people out from under the boots of greed trampling on our way of life. Lies! Yes, Trump is a union buster and deeply hostile to workers and the union movement. But Harris was Biden's other half in blocking the railroad workers' strike, the most shameful act of union busting in decades.
Don't forget East Palestine, Ohio.
Yes, don't forget East Palestine, Ohio. Absolutely. The CEOs of the big Harris's campaign donors are a who's who of the billionaire class. The CEOs of the big corporations, every single one of them a ruthless union buster, are said to be euphoric. Again, another quote. Euphoric that Harris is a Democratic nominee. No, they are not being delusional. Big business understand that Harris is on their side. That is why they are euphoric. By peddling her breathtaking lies last night, AOC, the former self-described socialist and working class representative, is cementing her position to rise to the top of the most powerful party of the capitalist class in the world. Last night's DNC extravaganza also saw the president of the UAW, the Auto Workers Union, Sean Fain, do his own share of spreading lies, calling Harris a fighter for working people. Fain is also one of the many labor leaders who have publicly called for a ceasefire and for an end to US military funding for the Israeli state, and then turned around and endorsed both Biden and Harris with no discussion or vote by the rank and file members of their unions. This type of sleight of hand is gravely damaging to working class organizing and the anti-war movement. And it is particularly devastating at this moment. Last year was the year of the largest number of American workers participating in major strike action. By refueling illusions in Harris and the Democrats, labor leaders like Stein are allowing the Democratic Party and the billionaire bosses they serve to co-opt the genuine desire of working and young people to fight back. What should Sean Stein and other labor leaders have done instead of cheerleading Harris at the DNC? They should have been mobilizing tens of thousands of rank and file union members to the protest outside the DNC. They should have called for a day of coordinated strike action across the nation to shut down the boss's profit machine. The streets of Chicago would have looked very different. Harris and the Democrats would have been very afraid. And the potential for a big vote for Jill Stein to help lay the ground for a new mass party of the working class would have been far greater as well. It is that kind of threat, the threat of labor strikes, social upheaval, and millions of votes for Jill Stein that is needed to end the war on Gaza and to win real victories for working people. We should learn the lessons from the history of class struggle and social movements. The Vietnam War was ended by mass movements of working and young people. For the first time in history, US imperialism was forced to abandon a war. The war was started and escalated under Democrats. It was ended under Republican President Nixon, not because of his support, but despite him. Because there were millions of people on the streets, a mass anti-war movement. There were mass social movements, the Black Power movement, the women's movement, the Latino movement. The soldiers themselves were organizing and refusing to fight. The labor movement carried out mass strikes in the 1970s and changed US history as well. That is what is needed right now. But we cannot disentangle the question of how to end the war and US military funding Israel and winning workers' rights from the question of how to vote in November or from the Democratic Party. The problem is that as long as labor and other leaders promote the Democratic Party, the warmongering party of the billionaire class, it will continue to stymie and paralyze any steps forward. The Democratic Party is the graveyard for movements. If we are going to rebuild a fighting labor movement in the United States and a powerful enough anti-war movement to end the genocide, we are not going to do that by putting our illusions in the Democrats or the leaders who tell us we should trust the Democrats. We need to rebuild the militancy of the rank and file. That is why we launched Workers' Strike Back. That is why we are using Workers' Strike Back to help build the anti-war movement and to fight for the biggest possible anti-war, pro-worker vote in this election for Jill Stein. And that is why you should join Workers' Strike Back if you haven't already. But we also need to be sober about what this week means for our movement going forward. The low represents a setback. Unless we build a much stronger movement, the Democrats are going to lead many working people down a blind alley once again. We can't let that happen without a fight. So whether we win hundreds of thousands of votes for Jill Stein as the strongest anti-war pro-worker candidate, or we win millions of votes, regardless, we have to fight for every possible vote. I'm not using these kinds of numbers to be discouraging, but for our movement to have a real and honest assessment of where things are is crucial. The great lie, if it is not effectively countered by our movements, and even if we do everything right, is going to mislead many people, and many others who rejected will vote for Trump or not vote at all. Every vote for Jill Stein is a clear vote against the genocidal war, against the billionaire agenda, and every single one of those votes means something. Every vote for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, conversely, is a vote for genocidal war and the further undermining of the working class and our movements. Being real about assessing our movement's strengths and weaknesses does not mean, in any sense, being pessimistic. In fact, it guards against the demoralization that would be inevitable unless we develop an honest, scientific assessment of reality. We need to draw accurate conclusions and plan our next steps accordingly. If we win a million votes for Jill Stein, that would be a victory in the context of the great lie. And rather than be discouraged, we should use that to take our movement forward. When we ran our first election in Seattle in 2012 for the Washington State House of Representatives, I received 9% of the vote on primary night. You're not mishearing, it was 9% on primary night. We saw this as a real step forward, however, because we as socialists knew the obstacles of running a revolutionary socialist for elected office. We campaigned relentlessly, and that year we won 29% of the vote in Nevada. And we saw that election as a building block. The following year, in 2013, we became the first socialist elected to the Seattle City Council in over 100 years. We won because we fought against the Democratic Party in Seattle and we organized working people, not by me kissing up the Democratic politicians. This election year and the anger of millions against the war and the cost of living crisis has shown that there's a huge opening for a new party for working people, even if it is temporarily being set back by the great lie and the fear of Trump. There is still an important opening from now until November 5th to win hundreds of thousands of working class and young people to our movement and to the Jill Stein campaign. So let's campaign for that. For union members, if you're watching this, either in person or on live stream, and you're a union member and you agree with our analysis, then please contact Workers Strike Back, because we need to put forward a number of rescind Harris endorsement resolutions in our union movement to start a real debate and challenge the labor leadership who are cheerleading Harris. Related to the election now and use that to take our movement beyond this election. Workers Strike Back is calling for a mass organizing conference in February of next year to do just that, and that's why, as I said, I hope you all join Workers Strike Back if you haven't already. The Democrats and Republicans are rotten parties of the billionaires, and the system that they represent is rotten to the core as well. Under capitalism, the resources of society are owned and controlled by a sliver of billionaires and multimillionaires at the top. Capitalism is a system of crisis, a system of war, an engine for inequality and environmental destruction. The corporations act only in the interest of maximizing short-term profits at whatever cost in human lives and human suffering. We need to take the big corporations into democratic public ownership. Because we can't control what we don't own. U.S. imperialism will continue to back the Israeli state because they see it as their key ally in the oil-rich Middle East and an essential ally in the U.S.-China Cold War, the defining conflict of the present period. The brutal occupation of Gaza is at the root of this crisis, did not begin, and the occupation is at the root of this crisis. It did not begin on October 7th. The Palestinian people have a right to defend themselves, including with arms, and the right to self-defense. But we should recognize there is no solution to the occupation by engaging in acts of terrorism, and fundamentally, there is no solution to the occupation on the basis of capitalism. We need a socialist Palestine, a socialist Israel, an end to the system of apartheid, and full rights for all Palestinians within Israel, which is only possible if we have a voluntary socialist federation in the Middle East. And we need to dismantle capitalism entirely, to remove it root and branch. That is why I am a revolutionary socialist. If you think you're a socialist as well, then in addition to joining Workers' Strike Back, I hope you will also consider joining my organization, Revolutionary Workers Solidarity.
As Kshama said, we're not here to criticize things. We're here to be honest and be realistic about what's happening and what is needed, what strategy is needed to fight back. And I saw a headline recently, an article was listing 7 billionaires who are all organizing fundraisers for Kamala Harris. They have honestly an almost unfathomable amount of money that they're able to put into their campaigns. And as if that weren't enough, we now have these union leaders donating millions and millions and millions of dues money from their workers also to her campaign. It takes money, it takes resources to build campaigns. They know that. We know that too. The next person I'd like to introduce up here is Patrick Gibson, who is going to ask for money.
I think this is really exciting. It's very rare to get that level of applause for people for money. Like Keelan said, my name is Patrick Gibson. I'm a member of Workers' Strike Back. I've been proud to build this organization since we launched in March last year. Right now, we're going to be passing out donation slips, and I want to ask you to not fill them out, because I want to talk first about where that money actually goes. Workers' Strike Back is a nationwide organization. We're fighting against the bosses and their political servants. Our core demands are an end to the genocidal war on Gaza, fighting for a $25 an hour minimum wage, good union jobs for all, fighting racism, sexism, and all forms of oppression, affordable housing and free health care, and lastly, no more sellouts, We need a new party for working people. We're building chapters across the country that meet every month. If there's not a chapter in your area, you can attend our monthly national Zoom meetings while we work with you to build a branch where you live. And at our meetings, we discuss important issues facing working people, like how to approach the elections, the lessons we can learn from recent strikes, and how to end the war on Gaza. Our movement launched On Strike, which is a video broadcast hosted by Kshama that covers issues from the perspective of workers' needs, not the needs of billionaires put forward by corporate media. On Strike puts forward a socialist analysis and a strategy to build working class movements, to fight against oppression, and to fight for a new mass party for workers and young people completely independent of the two corporate political parties. Right now, we're fighting to win the biggest possible vote for anti-war, pro-worker candidate Jill Stein in this election. And doing all of that requires finances. We don't take corporate cash. They wouldn't give it to us. We don't run ads in our media. And so today, I'm going to ask you for a donation. Together, tonight, we're going to raise $7,500 to continue to build this movement across the country. And in a little bit, I'm going to call out some numbers. If you're watching on the live stream, there's a donation link in the chat. Live stream watchers, you should say in the chat when you hear a number that you can donate, so that we can all feel that sense of momentum together. And I will try to announce those donations here in person. If you don't hear it immediately, there's a little bit of a broadcast lag, but I am watching a million screens at once. And if you're here in person, raise your hand when I get to a number that you can give. Fill out the donation card, keep your hand up until a volunteer from our donation team comes over to process your donation and collect your form. Normally, we have chairs, and our volunteers can kind of squeeze their way to you. That's going to be a little hard in the pews. So if you're in the middle of a row, you can pass us your donation slip with an amount written on it, send us your credit card, we'll run the transaction in front of you, and send the credit card back. So think about a number you can give. Think about what's at stake with crisis after crisis hammering working people right now. And then think about if you can give a little more to continue the fight for an end to this genocidal war, for a strong labor movement, and for a mass political party that represents us, and the biggest possible vote for Jill Stein in November. So tonight we've been talking about what working people can do to end the genocidal war on Gaza. Both parties of big business have shown their determination to back the Israeli state to the hilt, with the Biden-Harris administration approving recently a record-setting $23 billion on top of the billions that have already been sent to fund the Israeli military. And that's despite the fact that over 60% of Americans want an immediate ceasefire and an end to U.S. military aid to Israel. And on top of the unfathomable horrors facing Palestinian people, the Israeli government now seems intent on provoking the escalation of a wider regional war as well. So to bring an end to the war, we're going to need a massive international anti-war movement on the scale that ended the war in Vietnam, when millions of people in the U.S. took to the streets. And the labor movement has an important role to play in ending the war. The most powerful weapon we have as working people is our ability to withdraw our labor, to turn off the boss's profits, to go on strike. And a labor movement that's willing to flex that muscle, like Kshama said, can grind key sections of the U.S. economy to a halt and make it impossible for the flow of military aid to continue. And it's been an important step forward that a lot of major unions, like the CWA, like the United Auto Workers, they've passed resolutions calling for a ceasefire. But unfortunately, the leaders of those unions have also rushed to endorse Harris in the past few weeks, despite the fact that she's only going to be a more effective messenger for Biden's same genocidal and not to mention anti-worker policies. We launched Workers' Strike Back to be a home for people who want to fight for the militant union movement we need, one that's willing to use its full power to fight for the interests of working people here in the U.S. and internationally, because our interests are actually aligned with each other and not with the bosses of any nation. We've been helping Workers' Strike Back members to pass resolutions in their unions calling for a ceasefire. We've been helping them fight for resolutions calling on their unions to rescind their endorsements of Harris and to stop pouring members' dues money into Democratic campaigns. So who here can give $500 or more to help continue the fight to build a fighting labor movement? I see one back there. Can anyone match that? We gotta give it a try. We heard from Kshama Sawant. One more. We just heard from Kshama, who served as an elected representative of working people on the Seattle City Council for a decade. During the time she was in office, Seattle's working people won victory after victory. The first $15 minimum wage in a major city, renters' rights, including eviction protections, 6 months notice for rent increases, and a new tax on Amazon and big business that's used to fund affordable housing. Collectively, they represent a transfer of wealth of billions of dollars from the bosses to workers and renters struggling to make ends meet. The $15 an hour minimum wage victory alone was $3 billion won from low-wage workers in Seattle. And that inspired similar struggles across the country that collectively won higher wages for millions of workers. And those things weren't won through backroom deals or making really compelling arguments to Democratic Party politicians. Kshama used her office to build powerful movements of working people that put pressure on the Democrats, who were all initially staunchly opposed to each and every working class demand. We founded our own organization called 15 Now. We built mass organizing conferences, rallies, marches, neighborhood action groups. We collected signatures to get 15 on the ballot if the Democrats refused to act. And the threat of taking that decision directly to voters was what ultimately enabled us to win the highest minimum wage of any major city in the U.S. And that's why, because of the inflation adjustment we won, the minimum wage in Seattle is now $20. That minimum wage, right now, is under attack from the all-Democrat Seattle City Council. Workers Strike Back is leading a fight to defend it. We just forced them to withdraw and attempt to block the next stage of scheduled increases for service workers, but we know that more attacks are coming. And we founded Workers Strike Back to spread the fighting, class struggle approach that succeeded in winning so many victories for working people in Seattle across the country. We need to build chapters in every city where working people who want to replicate that example can come and learn from the lessons we've built up from those 10 years of experience and get organized to launch their own fight backs against the bosses. So who here can give $250 or more to help spread those lessons to workers all across the country? Stein herself is here tonight. This week, each one of the hundreds of people we've talked to at a protest, the thousands who've watched our On Strike broadcast, the tens of thousands who've watched the interviews Kshama and other Workers Strike Back members have given on various news outlets, all of those people have heard why we urgently need to build for the strongest possible anti-war vote for Jill Stein in November. Every vote cast for Jill Stein is a vote that puts pressure on the political establishment in the U.S. to end the war. Every vote for Harris or Trump undermines that pressure. Workers Strike Back members will be campaigning between now and November. We'll be setting up tables on street corners. We'll be knocking on doors. We'll be phone banking. We'll be organizing rallies to win every possible vote for Jill Stein. And that's the most immediate, concrete task we need to do. So who here today can give $100 so we can continue fighting for the biggest possible vote for Jill Stein in November? Absolutely. If you can keep your hand up until one of our volunteers gets you, that helps everything go as smoothly as possible. We're also producing On Strike. That's a weekly broadcast with the strategies and analysis that workers need in order to win. On Sunday, Kshama interviewed these two on the street, and we had the interview edited and up the next day. thanks to our small but dedicated and professional broadcast team. Recent episodes have included an analysis of the escalation in the Middle East, the election victory for Labour in the UK, Teamsters Union President shamefully speaking at the RNC, and the attacks on the minimum wage in Seattle. That is such an important undertaking because nobody else is producing that type of material in the mainstream media, or for the most part, even in existing left media. And it takes a lot of resources to produce a high-quality video broadcast. We need a show like On Strike to reach workers everywhere with the strategies and with the analysis that they need to win. And we need organizations like Workers Strike Back, where workers and young people can come together to discuss these ideas and take them into their workplaces, and into their schools, and into their unions. So I'm reaching the last few numbers, and before I reach them, I want to ask if you can consider making your donation to Workers Strike Back monthly. That makes you a member of Workers Strike Back, you support the work of the organization, you're able to fully participate in our democratic processes, like the vote we took at our recent national Zoom conference last month to endorse Stein. And so if you want to become a member making monthly donations, when you raise your hand, one of us can help you process that monthly contribution online. So who here can give $50 today, or to make it a monthly contribution, so we can keep producing On Strike, we can keep producing with sharp analysis that points forward toward a working class strategy for our movements. $50. And then one of our demands is for a $25 minimum wage. Who here can give $25 today, or make it monthly? And then lastly, who here can do $20? Who here can do 10 or 15 or even 5, any other amount to help move our, build our movement and take the organization and our movements for working people forward? We also have a few monthly donations online that I totally forgot to keep an eye on. And I think it's really exciting. Tonight, I can tell you we've raised, it looks like from my count, at least $3,000 just in the room upstairs. That's going to go a long way to continuing to build Workers Strike Back chapters all across the country, carry the fight forward for the biggest possible vote for Jill Stein in November, and keep producing the news and analysis that working people need to keep the bosses and the capitalist class. Solidarity.
I love it when I see articles in the corporate media about how this or that billionaire just made a new, $20 million donation to fund some wing of a hospital, like it's some huge newsworthy event. And I'm like, if I did the math, that's additionally less than like 20 cents for me, if we were to compare our salaries. So I just want to say, everyone who gave $50, $25, $10, $5, we know that you're giving proportionally to what you're able to give, to what you have access to, and a lot of us are really struggling to make ends meet right now. So we appreciate each and every donation. We appreciate the small donations as much as the big ones, because we know that proportionally to you, that is still a really significant sacrifice. So our final speaker this evening is Dr. Jill Stein, who's running for president as an independent, left, anti-war, pro-worker candidate. She was willing to get arrested with student protesters just a few months ago as part of the peaceful campus occupation protest movement against the war. And now she's here participating in the DNC protest and using her campaign and her platform to build the anti-war movement, despite the fact that she's coming under tremendous pressure from the Democratic Party establishment, including still every week, it seems like, new lawsuits threatening her ballot access in various states across the country. having worked with Kshama when she was in the city council, it really takes a lot to put yourself out there like that, to make yourself a lightning rod for all of the hate and all of the attacks. Everyone's saying it's going to be your fault if Donald Trump wins. It's a lot, and yeah, I just really appreciate Jill's willingness to take that on. Her platform includes not just ending the genocidal war and occupation of Gaza and ending all U.S. military aid to Israel, but also a $25 an hour minimum wage, Medicare for all, free public college, universal free childcare, and much more. Please welcome Jill Stein.
So much, Kayla, and thank you so much to everyone here. Thank you not just for being here tonight, but thank you for all you do. Thank you for being the real hope and the real power that will change America and change the world. And those of you who are here, by the way, we are not alone. As you know that. Right now, on just one of these social media streaming sites, on Do Dissidents alone, there are 3,000 people. People so badly need to hear everything that was said here tonight. To know that the theater of the absurd going on right now in mainstream media covering the Democratic nominating convention, that is the theater of the absurd. We the people are locked out of that convention. We the people are having a real convention right here. We hear nothing but genocide denial going on in that convention. That convention that's brought to us by AIPAC, by the war profiteers, by the healthcare insurance industry and big pharma and big real estate. That is who is funding politics in America and shaping the message at the DNC, shaping the agenda in Congress, shaping the agenda of the White House. And we say, enough of that. The American people are done being thrown under the bus. There is a moment of confusion going on right now, referred to as the Kamala mania. Many of us have seen this before. Anybody remember Obama mania?
Oh yeah.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We are not being fooled here. And America will not long be fooled. They can only be fooled right now because Kamala Harris has not had a single real interview with the press. She has not had a single debate, and in fact, she has not received a single vote. Kamala was anointed and appointed by the political elite and the economic elite in the Democratic Party. So this too will pass. The only question is when. It will be as soon as she's actually called to account, as soon as she actually begins to open her mouth, as she did, the first time that she was challenged at a rally, where she was challenged by some of the Palestinian protesters. And what did she say? Basically what she said, if you want Donald Trump elected, keep talking, otherwise I'm speaking. Well, she's going to be hearing a lot from we the people. So this is came into his election, he came into power claiming that he would end the war in Iraq. What did he do? He went from 2 wars to 7 wars. He ran saying he would close Guantanamo Bay. That exists till this day. He did not even begin to close it. He ran saying he would provide at least a public option and bulk purchasing of pharmaceuticals. They didn't do any such thing. They just continued to privatize healthcare and pour public subsidies into private profits through the Affordable Care Act. So we've been here before, and it's just shameful that people are being fooled. But it's not clear how much people are being fooled or how much they're just being intimidated and they're not showing up. We'll see. Yes, her polls are spiking, but her polls do not cover everybody. And in 2020, in the presidential election, 1 out of every 3 American voters voted with their feet by not participating in that election and not giving their votes to either Trump or Biden. Those are the people who are most being thrown under the bus. Those who don't vote are largely youth, people of color, people in low-income communities who are not voting, who are absolutely the first to be thrown under the bus, those who are getting hit worst and first. But that tide of abuse is really reaching all of us now, as more and more Americans are struggling harder and harder. We know now that over 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, barely scraping by. We know that half of all Americans right now are paying 30 to 50% of their monthly income just to keep a roof over their heads and are just 1 or 2 paychecks away from being evicted. Evictions are skyrocketing. Rates of homelessness are at an absolutely unprecedented rate at the same time that the Supreme Court is making it illegal to be homeless, and you are at risk for being arrested simply for sleeping in the public for lack of an actual place to put your head down and rest. So, this is not happening around the margins. This is happening to all of us. And as our speakers addressed before, healthcare is a crisis for everyone right now. We're seeing 8 million Americans who were driven into poverty last year just from the cost of healthcare alone. 18 million Americans who were not able to afford their pharmaceuticals. Yet this was a promise made back in the time of Obama that they would adopt bulk purchasing and bring down the cost of pharmaceuticals. They still haven't done it, even though they are patting themselves on the back now for claiming what a great job they're doing of bringing down those costs for 10 pharmaceuticals. 10 out of absolutely thousands. It's like AOC, who we fondly call AOC Pelosi. Credit my newfound running mate, Butch Ware. What AOC said, was it last night? Just giving cover to Kamala. This pretense that the Democratic Party is working hard, the Biden-Harris administration, that they are working hard to achieve a ceasefire. In fact, while we were having our convention with abandoned Biden-Harris, someone in the press interrupted to say that, oh, good news, a ceasefire agreement has just been adopted. And we said, what? Oh, okay, let's see what pans out, And we've seen what pans out. That was just another rumor, another misleading statement that AOC herself was parroting, pretending that there is some ceasefire agreement that is forever just an inch or two in front of our noses. But in fact, that ceasefire agreement is not coming. And in fact, the murder and the torture and the destruction of people and the civilization is increasing. It's not getting better, even as the Democrats are telling us that the ceasefire is around the corner. In fact, the number of deaths has gone up massively since the time when they first started promising. You know, and that number is now up to some 200,000 people. But who's counting? Because people are being pulverized right now. There are no bodies. Even when there's no rubble on top of them, you still cannot count the bodies. People who are losing relatives are being handed little plastic bags of basically pulverized bodies that are strewn on the floor. You know, this is like a commentary of who our government is, of how our tax dollars are being spent. To me, one of the really grimmest symbols, one of the truest symbols of what this policy is the fact that over 1,000 children, it was 1,000 months ago, over 1,000 children have had leg amputations with no anesthesia. I mean, that's like going back to an incredible era of barbarism. During the Civil War, before there was anesthesia, that was the era of biting the bullet. Biting the bullet meant you were given a bullet to bite on while you were having amputations in the Civil War. And what's going on right now is like that level of barbarity being inflicted on children. So we say to anyone who's confused about who do they vote for and what do you vote for, to know that every vote for Kamala is an endorsement, it is an affirmation, it supports and it enables genocide. If you want to enable genocide, well, yeah, you've got your candidate in Kamala Harris. But if you want to stop genocide, voting for our campaign is how we do that. Every single vote that's cast for our campaign is a shot across the bow of the empire that we are organized and we are coming for them. They who are war criminals who actually belong in The Hague. We are getting organized. The American people already agree with us. That is why there is such a powerful disinformation and fear campaign that's going on right now 24/7 to silence us and to disappear us, because the empire is quaking in its boots, because the American people are done being thrown under the bus, and we are done tolerating a genocide which is really the tip of the spear of empire. And this empire is not only impoverishing us, it is also endangering us. That empire is not limited to the outrages being committed in Gaza. That empire has conducted regime change about 80 times since the Second World War, basically strewing death and destruction across the world in its policies of endless war. Has this created a more secure or peaceful world? No. Hardly. What it's brought us is essentially failed states, mass refugee migrations, and continuing terrorist threats, one right after the other. You can go all the way back to the war in Vietnam. What did we accomplish in the war in Vietnam? You know, absolutely nothing. Vietnam was where I woke up as a teenager in high school. I woke up to what kind of a world we are living in and what our political system is. Whether it was Democrats or whether it was Republicans, it was all about killing people in Vietnam and taking our young people to die in Vietnam. And it was so clear to me that it was absolutely absurd, this political system. I wanted nothing to do with it until I discovered Ralph Nader in the year 2000. This is what democracy looks like. This is what people-powered and worker-powered democracy actually looks like. But just a few more words about that empire. Because that empire, you know, it has policy. It's called full spectrum dominance. That means that we, the USA, will dominate all countries, all potential areas of competition, all around the world, in all spheres of interaction, whether it is on the battlefield, whether it is under the sea, on the sea, in the oceans, in the skies, in cyberspace, in outer space. We, the U.S., will dominate all spheres. And that is what we have proceeded to do since the collapse of the Soviet Union, when we became the unopposed power. And we still think we are the unopposed power. We are not the unopposed power, and we need to get with the program soon and stop being the bully in the china shop. That is costing us that is costing us half of our congressional budget, which works out to, I did check this number because it's not in common circulation, it's $12,000 on average per household that paid for the endless war machine last year. $12,000. Did you have something better you might have done with $12,000? That is the average contribution of each household to the endless war machine last year. That includes the VA, it includes nuclear power and weapons in the energy program, and so on. So it includes some of the things that aren't usually calculated in there. But remember, it is half of our congressional dollars that are going into this endless war machine. And it not only empowers us and prevents us from spending what we need on healthcare and housing and education and making public higher education free and building at least 15 million units of public housing. Good quality social housing. That is what we need to do. And just a couple other words about what we need to do. Because we can do this. The American public is strongly in support, actually, of a radical, progressive left agenda, starting with health care for everyone as a human right, whether it's Medicare for all as a stepping stone to a nationalized health care system. That's where we can begin. It doesn't cost us any money. This is the big secret. It actually saves us money. $500 billion. Of our current batch of criminal misleaders, that they are neglecting this. This is motherhood and apple pie. We should have health care as a human right for everyone right now. We need housing as a human right for everyone right now. And that starts with a national program of rent control to stabilize our rents and to prevent gentrification. We need a tenant bill of rights that prevents you from being evicted so that your landlord can remodel, raise the price, and gentrify your neighborhood. And why don't we have public housing? This is such an important, critical investment in our nation. We don't have public housing thanks to Bill Clinton. Under Bill Clinton, a piece of legislation was passed called the Fair Clause Bill. That basically prohibited any public investment in public housing. And there went public housing so that it could be replaced by private and luxury housing, which now basically usurps public subsidies to fund a little tiny bit of affordable housing while the developers make out like bandits with largely and mostly unaffordable and luxury housing. So we need to reclaim our right to public housing. We can. We're also calling, by the way, for a $25 an hour minimum wage. So that a minimum wage is a living wage. And by the way, we are calling for strong rights of unions. Everyone deserves a good union job and a strong union to protect us. We need to declare a climate emergency because we are in a climate emergency. And they won't tell you this, but the reason they don't declare a climate emergency is because if they did that, they would then have over $500 billion per year to start dealing with that climate emergency. That's why our administration, on day one, will declare that climate emergency, will unleash. We will unleash that $600 billion per year to actually start creating the high-quality, good-paying union jobs that provide the emergency transition we need. And as part of that also, we bring into public ownership, public management, and public planning all corporations necessary, and we create new public entities which are publicly owned and publicly managed. That is why, as Greens, we are an eco-socialist party, because the climate collapse will not be fixed by capitalism. Our economic system is endlessly exploiting people, workers, wages, and our resources, our scarce resources, and investing in endless growth. That is a climate disaster. There is no way to fix the climate crisis without ending capitalism and its basic tenets. I want to mention quickly a couple other things that will happen on day one. And by the way, as part of the Green New Deal, we not only create green energy, we also create green, sustainable public transportation. And that public transportation is part of public housing, by the way. The housing that we will build as part of social housing comes with public transportation. It also comes with preservation of green space and recreational space that are added also as human rights to part of our development of livable and sustainable communities as what social housing is all about. A couple other things, because I know we're short on time, we could go on all night here, but I want to add, cutting the military budget. That is 50 to 75%, and remember that the president is the commander-in-chief and proposes that military budget. So we don't have to wait for Congress to come into agreement. We can get to work right away. On day one, we will fix the immigration crisis. And the most critical thing to fix the immigration crisis is to stop causing it in the first place. We will end the endless wars and regime change operations which destabilize whole nations and force people to flee for their lives. We will also end the war on drugs, by the way, and declare amnesty for those who've been unjustly locked up in our jails. We will address substance use as a public health issue. and by ending the war on drugs overseas, which is largely at our instigation, by ending that war on drugs, we also decompress the migration crisis, because it is that black market that gives so much money and power to the violent cartels to terrorize people broadly and, again, drive that migration crisis. So we can begin to decompress the migration crisis on day one by rolling back the prohibitions on substances and on drugs. Just a couple other things to mention quickly. On day one, we will also instruct our Department of Justice to take APAC to court so that it becomes a so-called a foreign agent, and it is no longer able to buy our Congress and our president, by the way. On that same day, we will also initiate an antitrust lawsuit against corporate media. So the real media, exemplified by RBN here tonight. This is what the real press looks like. We call those other guys, we call them the old press. This is the real press. And an antitrust lawsuit will also break up the corporate media conglomerates whose job is basically to advance their own careers. That is what they do. They are lapdogs to power. We need a media which are watchdogs to power. The First Amendment is first for a critical reason. We cannot have a democracy without freedom of speech, freedom to protest, freedom to redress grievances, freedom of political association. We need that First Amendment. We need that So remember, as Frederick Douglass said, and I'll conclude with that, as Frederick Douglass said, power conceives nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. We are that demand. Don't let them pretend otherwise. We are absolutely essential to ending genocide and not stopping there. We will also end empire. We will end oligarchy, and we will end fascism. The solution to fascism, they are actually the cause of this right-wing extremism in this country through their agenda, their neoliberal agenda of austerity, of privatization, of endless war, and huge tax giveaway to the wealthy. That is what drives the misery of working people, 30 million people who've lost their jobs over the last several decades. It is that economic misery that is basically the driver of right-wing extremism. The way we solve the right-wing extremism is not through the Democratic Party. It's doing like what France did just a month or so ago, bringing the left together and actual everyday working people together so that we can have critical mass. We can be an unstoppable force. We will be that unstoppable force together. That is how we beat back fascism, not by voting for the lesser evil or disappearing ourselves to the Democratic Party. So I will end by quoting Alice Walker, the famous poet, novelist, and Palestinian human rights advocate. Alice Walker, and I'm paraphrasing her, basically, she said, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. Our job is to get out there and build that power and manifest that power. Remember, a vast majority of Americans already oppose this genocide. The majority of Americans are tired of being thrown under the bus, are tired of living paycheck to paycheck. are tired of struggling to keep a roof over their heads and to try to get health care, which so many are denied right now. We do have the numbers, we have the values, we have the vision, we have the solution. I say thank you all so much who are in this room and who are listening, because it is we who are not being talked out of our power. It is we who are not drinking that toxic Kool-Aid that the corporate media machine is spinning overtime right now to throw at us. But that bubble will be bursting very soon in so many ways. It's just a matter of having the courage of our convictions and moving ahead and being organized together. It's not so complicated. It is politics 101. It is door knocking. It is tabling. It is flyering. It is phone banking. And it is contributing when you can, what you can, for us to fight the power. The power is quaking in their boots. That is why they announced back in March that they were hiring an army of corporate lawyers to try to throw us off the ballot because they're terrified of having to confront us in the court of public opinion. This is why they are actually now advertising. They have the utter shamelessness and the gall to be publicly advertising right now for people to take jobs infiltrating and disrupting and spying on our campaign. They are actually doing that. That's the DNC that is doing that job posting. And they are also holding on to our money. We earned basically $300,000 in public matching funds, and they have refused to give it to us starting about a month ago until the petition drives are over. Now, why would they be doing that? Because they are terrified that we are coming. And I will say, corporate media and some of the, shall we say, somewhat pseudo-progressive media has refused to cover us all along. Democracy Now!, somehow they have managed not to cover the one anti-genocide, anti-war, pro-worker climate emergency campaign that actually has a pathway to the White House. We say shame on you.
Shame!
And once we are done with our ballot access drive, we're within about 2 weeks of completing them. And we are going to be on the ballot for probably it'll be about 90, maybe 95% of voters here. So thanks to all of you so much for making that happen. And the bottom line is the empire is quaking in its boots. It knows its days are numbered. The days of genocide are numbered. We are strong. We are not turning around. We are going forward. Together we are absolutely unstoppable. And I'm so thrilled to be here tonight with Workers Strike Back, with all of you, for us to be looking forward to the future, including that organizing conference in February, which we should all be very much a part of, and everything between now and then. Let's stand up. Let's show them what real democracy is made of, what peace and justice and an end to genocide looks like. Thank you.
Thank you everybody again so much, both in person and on Zoom, for being here this evening. I really hope that the end of this meeting is not the end of your involvement